It's Mondo Cool. It's Mondo Cool. It's Mondo Cool. That's right, boys. Mondo Cool.
Hi, I'm your host JerryTerrifying, and you're watching Mondo Cool TV. Feels like it's been a while since we've been here. But without actually acknowledging that, let's just go ahead and jump into this main segment. We're going to be taking a look at a trilogy within the Bomberman franchise for the Game Boy. So let's go ahead and take a look at that.
The Bomberman GB trilogy is an excellent series of games for the Game Boy. Oh, you didn't know that it was a trilogy? The first game came out in America as Wario Blast. The second game, Bomberman GB2, was released as Bomberman GB, and the third game was never released outside of Japan. Amazingly, the Bomberman GB series has managed to retain much of its multiplayer prowess on the small screen. Let's take a closer look at this sub-series of Bomberman games. In Bomberman GB, there isn't much plot, just the basic premise for Bomberman to battle his way towards a goal. While riding on his motorcycle, Bomberman is ambushed by Black Bomber and his gang of bombing thugs. Black Bomber and his gang steal all of Bomberman's power-ups, and now Bomberman needs to get them back. The US version of the game added Wario as a marketing ploy.
Oh, the damage we can do, wreaking havoc and destruction. Bomberman will never know what hit him. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Wario takes on Bomberman in the explosive new adventure, Wario Blast, on Game Boy and Super Game Boy.
I love it.
The games are essentially the same, but add the option of playing as Wario or Bomberman, and a slight change to the plot. The passwords used to save the game are the same across regions if you're playing as Bomberman and Wario Blast. Wario passwords are the same passwords, but backwards. Wario, in his constant search for new lands to conquer and treasures to gain, has found the extra-dimensional portal that links his world with the one that Bomberman inhabits, thinking that the Mad Bombers will make a nice addition to his legions of mindless minions, as well as a new source of funds for his nefarious schemes. Wario steps through the gate, and soon finds that the Mad Bombers are not quite the dim-witted flunkies he originally thought them to be. Controlling either Bomberman or Wario, if you're playing Wario Blast, you fight through various rounds against increasing amounts of enemies. You start in a one-on-one fight and have to win the best out of 3 rounds. 2 enemies, best out of 3 rounds, and so on until you face a boss. Upon defeating a boss, you get a power-up and move on to the next stage. You will be shown how to use your new power-up, and will be warned about the obstacles in the next stage. A few of the stages remind me of Bomberman 94's special stages. The ones with warp tiles and bomb guiding tiles. There are also levels with short fuses which can really mess you up if you forget the new timing. At the beginning of the boss fight, there are power-up tiles scattered across the arena. Pick these up as fast as you can, as the boss can move over them and destroy them, preventing Bomberman or Wario from reaching maximum power for the fight. There is a battle mode in this game. Go to Start Game, then select Battle Mode. You and up to 3 friends can play some classic Bomberman battle mode on the Super Nintendo with the aid of a multi-tap. Level 7 has an Easter egg. I think the level has numbers built in. I can't confirm this and don't really know how you're supposed to get the password for the Easter egg level, but that password is freely available online. It's 5656 or 6565. The Easter egg stage is a battle mode with infinitely spawning Bombermans or Warrios depending on who you're playing as. The goal is to bomb as many enemies as you can. Traveling long and far in search of the legendary treasure, believed to grant the beholder any wish, Bomberman had finally found where the legendary treasure lay hidden. But at that very moment, the earth split open and Bomberman fell into the darkness below. And so began the new adventure of Bomberman. In Japan, the game was called Bomberman GB2. In the United States, it was released as Bomberman GB because the first game was called Wario Blast. One of the more interesting features of this game is its functionality with the Super Nintendo multi-tap when played on a Super Game Boy. This probably isn't the best way to play battle mode, but it's a really interesting feature nonetheless. As far as I can tell, there's no link cable multiplayer support. Seems odd that they would include support for the Super Nintendo multi-tap, but not for the on-the-go multiplayer with a link cable. Pressing select during story mode will make Indy Bomber commit suicide. While I never got stuck in the level with switches, the pre-level explanation warns that you can get stuck. Perhaps that's why a suicide option was included. After beating a boss, you regain an ability. My favorite is the whip. Basically, it's bomb kick, but because this is Indy Bomber, he uses a whip to launch the bombs across the screen. Every time you die, you lose a bit of power until you start with no power-ups at all. And of course, starting from a continue or password, you start with nothing. Each stage gives you a choice between Mode A and Mode B, offering different goals and methods to complete the stage. This offers a bit of replayability. You could beat the game doing all Mode A and then beat it again doing all Mode B and get a much different experience. Before taking on the final boss, you're treated to a boss rush mode. I don't always enjoy boss rush modes, but in this series I did. Lesson mode lets you try out each stage type. I personally see the multiple ways to play through worlds as incentive to play through the game twice. There's a password that lets you play battle mode against the computer. The 11th planet of Bomber Nebula, named Owen, faces a sudden earthquake. Deep within its underground, the terrible, evil bomber had been trapped for ages. He finally rises to power and steals the bomber capsules from Bomberman. Bomberman and his friends then vow to take back the capsules and defeat Evil Bomber. Will Bomberman be able to defeat the Evil Bomber, or will he return? Cutie Bomber is a female scientist in the Bomber Nebula and creator of the Moto Bomber. Bomberman can select one of the 4 Bomber Motos in her garage. Moto Bombers do have special abilities. Moto 1 basically gives you the ability to take an additional hit. Moto 2 does the same, but allows you to jump over a hard block. Moto 3 will let you ram into soft blocks and destroy them while holding down the B button. And Moto 4 allows you to take 2 hits of damage and gives you the fastest dash while holding B. At the beginning of each stage, you can choose which Moto Bomber you'd like to use, or even choose not to use a Moto Bomber. This game is the best in the trilogy, and it's a shame it never came out in America. Its levels have the most complexity out of the 3, and more enemy variety. After beating a boss, you get a token and can decide which abilities you get back first instead of predetermined abilities. There are mid-bosses that I found to be refreshing, giving you a more advanced enemy to fight. The levels are a little more diverse as well. Jewel collecting levels, enemies that need to be tricked into defeating other enemies, etc. At the beginning of the game, there are 3 stages available that can be played in any order. After beating the wood, city, and ice levels, 3 more levels are unlocked, which again can be beat in any order. After beating sand, lava, and aqua, the final world is unlocked. After beating these stages, you go through a boss rush mode, and then finally take on the final boss. This game comes packaged in a really cool tin, not too different from a Band-Aid tin. Some of the other Bomberman Game Boy games also came in these cool tins. Excellent piece for a Bomberman collection. Luckily for fans of Bomberman, there is a fan-translated version of Bomberman GB3 floating around the internet. As far as I can tell, there's no battle mode available in Bomberman GB3, but there is a challenge mode. Bomberman Collection is a compilation title with 4 Bomberman games. Bomber Boy, which contains a port of the original Bomberman, Bomberman GB, and Bomberman GB2. The North American version is known as Atomic Punk, and in Japan it's called Bomber Boy. The American version is the only one with a story. The peaceful world of Atomica has been invaded by radiation thieves known only as Nukies. Seeking ultimate control, these wicked villains have captured everyone who stood in their way. The people of Atomica are doomed, for there's no escape from the prison towers of the planet's nuclear factories. Only Atomic Punk and his father, Bomberman, have the speed and strength to overcome the Nukies' wrath. Now it's up to them to save their captive friends of Atomica. The heroes split up and tackle the raiding army of mutants on their own turf. Atomic Punk travels the lands of Atomica, while Bomberman returns to the cavernous realm of the subterranean world. Each character has the power and resources available to blast the Nukies off Atomica and restore peace to the land. The Japanese mode. Ignoring the North American storyline, the Bomberman character appears to be liberating robotic citizens on the surface worlds with the help of a female human who owns a panel shop where you can buy power-ups and use them in the next stage you choose to play. Playing stages will earn you cash to buy panels, the power-ups. There's an overworld with selectable levels of varying difficulty, with the difficulty being displayed so you can choose which levels to tackle and in what order. There is a Versus mode that takes advantage of the Game Boy link cable. Within Versus mode, there are 2 variations. Panel mode starts the 2 Bombermen off without any power-ups, and soft blocks can be destroyed, and the occasional power-up panel will be found. Powerful mode skips the power-up hunt and starts both bombers off with max firepower and 4 bombs. From the main menu, Game B is where you can access the direct port of Bomberman from the NES, with the maze size adjusted for the small screen. There is a bit of name confusion with Bomber Boy. In the United States it's Atomic Punk, in Europe it's called Dyna Blaster, and in Japan it was called Bomber Boy. Bomberman Collection is an excellent value, with the Game Boy being region-free and the games mostly only using Japanese for the opening cutscenes. They're very easy to import and play.
Probably one of the most well-known Bomberman games in America is Wario Blast. There's a pretty good campaign for that, along with Bomberman 64. Maybe we'll take a look at that someday in the future, but me personally, not the hugest fan of the N64 games. But this sub-series of Bomberman games, pretty good stuff to play if you can get away with a little bit of Game Boy time on the clock like I did. I played through all 3 of those games and made my notes on the clock, which is probably the greatest single achievement I made at my place of employment. Let's go ahead and take a look at this next segment. We're going to be harvesting a Nintendo Famicom adapter out of a gyromite cartridge. A lot of people have seen this on the internet, I'm sure, and I looked for years. I have a stack of gyromite carts that I've gone through looking for one of these adapters, and it wasn't until about 2 or maybe 3 months after I got my Sharp Twin Famicom that I managed to find one of these and developed a surefire way to spot them out in the wild. We're going to be taking a look at that. So let's go ahead and dive into that segment, and stay tuned because I've got some exciting news after that segment.
All right, welcome to the Mondo Cool Laboratories. This work areas where I'm going to be doing a lot of these projects for this old video. And on today's episode, I'm going to show you how to turn one of these into one of these. And what this is is a Famicom adapter, so you can play your Famicom games on your North American Nintendo. This will work on your front loader and top loader, and it's a pretty easy process. This is a pretty good beginner's project. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is find a gyromite cart that has an adapter in it. Now, the easiest way to do this is to take a look at the tips of the pin connectors. Now, if you peer into an NES cartridge, you can just kind of barely see the tips. Now, you're looking for the tips that line up to one side. If the little tip lines up in the middle, that is not a Famicom adapter. You want the ones that have the tips lining up all to one side. And the cartridges will also have 5 screws on the back. Later Nintendo games, on the top corners, they had a little plastic hinge where the carts connected when you're putting them together, and then 3 screws. You want a 5-screw gyromite with the pins lining up to one side, and if you have 2 side by side, the one with the adapter will be about an ounce heavier. Let's go ahead, open up, and liberate our gyromite adapter. Okay, and now that you have the gyromite liberated from its case, you take the game out and you put it to the side. Then you're left with this plastic piece and this adapter. So the first step is to take it out, flip it around, and plug it back into the plastic adapter, so that those tabs are out of the way and you have enough room to slide a Famicom cartridge onto it. But as you can see here, a cartridge won't quite fit. So we're going to need to sand down the sides of this plastic piece. Now, I've seen people use a Dremel and some sort of rotary tool to do this, but that will just blast through that plastic like a hot knife through butter. So what I like to do is take a piece of sandpaper, put it on the corner of something that has a 90-degree angle, like my workbench, for example, and then just sand down both sides. Now, we want to get rid of about 1/16 of an inch worth of plastic, which is not very much. So evenly sand it out on both sides, periodically cleaning off the plastic debris and seeing if you have a good fit. Now, once you have a good fit, you're almost done. If you're using a top-loading Nintendo, you don't have to worry about this, but using a front-loading Nintendo, it's kind of hard to get your Famicom game out of the system. Nintendo games have that little pinch area so you can pull the games out easily. Famicom games do not have this. So the reason why we kept those screw mounts on the sides is I like to tie on a little handle with a little bit of twine. So measure yourself out a good length of twine, insert it through one of the screw holes, tie a knot, do the same on the other side, and now you have a handle that you can use to pull your Famicom game out of your front-loading Nintendo. Now, when you go to use your brand new Famicom adapter, make sure that this microchip is on the same side as the back Famicom label. Now, to avoid any potential screw-ups, I've used my handy-dandy label maker to label the side without the chip as Famicom front, and on the back where the microchip goes is labeled NES up or front. So in your top-loading Nintendo, this side faces the front. If you're using the front-loader Nintendo, your cartridge would go in like this with the back side up. So I've put a little reminder here because I'm forgetful these days. I'm getting old and moldy and can't seem to remember much. So I've got this label here that shows which way it's oriented with your Nintendo. So just remember that When you're using a top loader, you're going to see the back label and the microchip. When you're using a front-loading Nintendo, it would go in like this with the back label and the microchip facing up. Now you're probably saying to yourself, JerryTerrifying, you don't need 2 Famicom adapters. And I'm going to tell you that yes, I do. I have a top loader Nintendo, I have a front loader Nintendo. What if I want to play 2 different Famicom games at the same time on Nintendos? I mean, that's a realistic scenario. No, it's not. I'm going to be giving one of these away. Stick around to the end of the episode for details on how you can win this Famicom cartridge. Hello Kitty game not included. That's mine.
Okay, so you're probably thinking to yourself, JerryTerrifying, I want to get my hands on that Famicom adapter. This is an official Nintendo manufactured piece of hardware that you harvested painstakingly from a gyromite cartridge. This is no fly-by-night Chinese knockoff Kickstarter GoFundMe campaign garbage. This is the real deal Nintendo adapter, and you want this. You want to play Famicom cartridges on your Nintendo. Have you seen the prices of Nintendo games? You want these Famicom games. How do you win it? All you got to do is go to mondocooltv.com, sign up for the Mondo Cool newsletter. What's in this newsletter, you ask? Well, there's going to be announcements for new episodes of Mondo Cool TV and Mondo Coolcast as they come out. I promise that it will not release more frequently than once a month if I manage to keep up any kind of release schedule. There will be all of the featurette notes, so links to magazine scans, articles, any of the resources that I used that it couldn't fit into the episode itself, or if you want to do further reading. There's some really good interviews I've dug up for the development of the first House of the Dead. As a House of the Dead enthusiast, I'd recommend checking them out. So this is the place where all these extras and behind-the-scenes stuff is going to land. So that's it. All you have to do is sign up for this newsletter and you're entered for a random drawing for this Famicom adapter. I would appreciate whoever wins to put up an Instagram, a YouTube video or something. Perhaps future promotional giveaways. There'll be a few more hoops for you to jump through. To use a hashtag. On Instagram, sometimes when I post stuff related to Mondo Cool TV, I use hashtag MondoCoolmunity. There's like the only 3 posts that include that are my posts. So maybe we can get that to be a thing. So for, I don't know, social media interaction. That's what people do on the internet these days, right? And that'll just about do it for this episode of Mondo Cool TV. Sorry for the slight delay between episodes, but things happen. I've had the birth of my first child, for those of you that don't necessarily follow all of my videos and Instagrams. So hopefully we can crank out some of these episodes that I've had sitting mostly done for a few years on a hard drive. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, you can go ahead and direct that towards this email address that I forget which email address I even use for this. MondoCoolMedia@gmail.com. That's it. You can also leave feedback at the Mondo Cool hotline at 937-419-1223. There's the possibility to play your voicemail on the air if you're interested. You can also text or send pictures to that number, and I don't know, we can do something with it. So I appreciate you watching this episode. Next time on Mondo Cool TV, one of the episodes I've really been looking forward to getting out there, we're going to be taking a look at this series of 3D Sega brawlers. This is some real dynamite action, so hang in there. We're going to get out a few more episodes of Mondo Cool TV. I appreciate you checking this one out. Catch you next time.